Oh my goodness, I am so happy to see you. I didn't think that you would be coming back to listen, but hey, here you are. Here I am in all of my wood-varnished glory. Today, we're going to get back into Starlight by Sacrifice Them to the Squid. We are on Chapter 2, and without further ado, let's get into it. Tariel can't exterminate the spiders in Dol Guldur, so she turns instead to the orcs, spinning and slashing, her heart thrilling to the welcome violence. It's a dance she loves above all others, the hiss of her blades and thrum of her bowstring forming a sweeter melody than any song ever sung in great elven halls. Her joy is broken too soon. "Not 13, not anymore," the captured orc rasps with great satisfaction, grinning through black ichor at Thranduil's feet. "The young one. The black-haired archer. We struck him with a Morgul shaft. The poison's in his blood. He'll be choking on it soon." Heat flashes through Tariel's body, and her blades, as integral as her own bones, flick out on their own accord. "Enough!" Thranduil's voice cracks like a whip, spark bright and unforgiving. "Tariel, leave." As she stalks away, she hears Thranduil say to the abomination, "I do not care about one dead dwarf. Answer the question." Starlight. An orc. Thranduil is offering sanctuary to an orc. Thranduil, who is adamant about his closed borders, is offering sanctuary to one of Morgoth's most perverted children. For 600 years, Tariel has been tasked with keeping the agents of darkness at bay. And now? Fury rises like bile, hot and sour. Thranduil told her to leave. He did not tell her to stand down. Her king may pardon one orc for its paltry information, but Tariel will do what she has always done and hunt the others. Orcs have no talent for subtlety. Beyond the carnage of the river gate, the banks are heavily trodden, sloppy arrows embedded in trees and shattered on rocks. Tariel follows the carnage with her heart in her throat. Every sliver of wood could be mean a barrel dashed to splinters, every floating body a dark-haired dwarf. She finds nothing. She's not sure which is worse. The orcs are moving at an incredible speed. She's almost frightened by their pace. Their passing has crushed brambles and dislodged any obstacles in their path. She jogs behind them, all senses alert and straining. The weather is mercifully clear, if not chilly in the shadows. Eventually, the river yawns and stretches into a wide green flow that takes it to the lake. A dismembered deer and its entrails stain the heaving granite underfoot, pools of blood and water ringed with gleeful footprints. Much of the meat is uneaten and buzzing with flies. The kill looks done in sport, and she feels a twist of revulsion. She's so lost in carnage and worry that she doesn't hear the soft crunch of gravel until it's far too close. In the centuries she's known him, Legolas has never disappointed her. He's never been content to sit at the foot of Thranduil's throne and listen to his father dispense wisdom. Instead, he prefers walking beneath the dense canopy of Mirkwood's trees, and he knows its secrets better than anyone can. When Tariel came into Thranduil's sanctuary, Legolas accepted her in the same way he embraced the forest. Decades passed before she was able to trust him in return, but he's become as close as family. He's also sooner than she'd guess he'd be. He's swift and light on his feet, but she's always been a contender in skill, and they have their bows drawn at each other in half a breath. "I thought you were an orc," she snaps, embarrassed at having been caught off guard. "If I were an orc, you'd be dead," he retorts. He relaxes his bow and skips around the gore. "Tariel, you cannot hunt 30 orcs on your own." "I'm not on my own," she counters. "You knew I would come," he sighs. "The king is angry, Tariel. For 600 years he's protected you, favored you." His tone becomes sharp. "You defied his orders. You betrayed his trust." Long centuries go both ways. She'd known Thranduil would give the orders to close the gate. She'd known he'd gather his people around him and go to ground like a stubborn badger, just as surely as she'd known Legolas would follow her. She can't feign ignorance. She can only breathe through her nose and try to keep her face still and calm. Come back with me, Legolas says, softening. He will forgive you. But I will not. The anger surges forward, and when she tries to bite it back, it rushes out despite her teeth. If I go back, I will not forgive myself. She swings her arm at the placid river. The king has never let orc filth roam our lands, yet he would let this orc pack cross our borders and steal our prisoners? It is not our fight. It is our fight, she snaps, and Legolas rocks back a step. It will not end here. With every victory, this evil will grow. If your father has his way, we will do nothing. We will hide behind our walls. The first pricks of hot tears, sharp little betrayals, live our lives away from the light and let darkness descend. Legolas frowns. Are we not part of this world? She entreats. Tell me, Milan, when did we let evil become stronger than us? He falters. She knows he chafes against his father, but he's still a prince, and he knows where his loyalties must lie. Tauriel disobeyed Thranduil, but Legolas also disobeyed when he came to find her. He knows his father's wrath, and he still risked it. Please tell me you did not aid in their escape, he finally says, and suddenly they're no longer talking about the orcs. A denial rises to her tongue, but it feels like a lie. The dwarves' flight was impeded by the orcs. Tauriel fought the orcs. There were plenty of orcs doing injury to her soldiers, and yet, when she'd seen the big one at his bow, she didn't hesitate. She can't for an instant pretend she'd had another motive. The young one, the black-haired archer. Keeley had looked right at her, his eyes burning, and then been lost in the churning foam. People will ask. My father will ask, Legolas says. Tauriel, I know you favored one. The poison's already in his blood. He'll be choking on it soon. She wants to scream. She wants to yell, to rant, to howl into the forest until her voice cracks against every hollow and hill. There's too much impotent pressure in her chest, the white burn of tears, every hurricane and storm bound into a wild, racing pulse. She will kill those trying to kill him, the mother's reckless son, the carrier of a promise, the warm palm and easy humor. Tauriel, Legolas says gently. Starlight, she says, the word as watery as the current below them. His name is Starlight. Tauriel has no intention of returning to Thranduil, not when the fury is still high in her blood. Let Legolas follow, if he will. He does, without hesitation. The afternoon closes in damp and dark as they collect themselves and make their way down the trail. The fog collects on their clothes, a chill harbinger of a long, early winter. She finds the first barrel by accident. It's tucked into a rocky hollow, wooden staff splintered and hoops bent from its violent passage. There, she breathes, the word condensing in the air. They do a thorough search, but the only others are barely more than wet kindling. The detritus isn't enough to account for 13 dwarves. Not 13, not anymore. But beneath the heavy reek of the orcs, she smells the bright tang of fresh blood. With growing dread, she casts about for a body, but finds only a small rag, barely more than a sodden bandage. Despite herself, she puts one fist to her mouth and draws a long, shuddering breath. This was no fight, Legolas says, coming up beside her. The orcs came long after. Where are they? There's a small dock set in a natural bay a few hundred feet downstream, the wild torrent of the upper river gone calm and placid on its journey west. No boats are moored, and there's a great cluster of orc footprints. Legolas examines the mooring. The rope was taken in, not cut, he announces. If they pushed off, it was not under duress. There was a full complement of empty barrels in the cellar, she says. A bargeman would have been expecting them. One corner of his mouth twitches. He would not have been expecting them to be full of dwarves. It's moments like this that remind her how fond she is of Legolas. He is devoted to his father, but opposite in every way. Where Thranduil can be charitably described as aloof, his son is given to moments of warmth and playfulness. A kind and loyal friend. That's how she knew he'd follow. Do you think they set out for Lake Town? Legolas asks. The dwarves had talked constantly about Durin's Day, a date tossed between their selves with desperate hope. She doesn't know the day according to the elven reckoning, only that it's fast approaching. They must have. They were heading to the mountain, but they carried no supplies, and a bargeman wouldn't be equipped for such a journey. Less than a day ago, she leaned against the cell door and listened to a hushed story about a shower of stars. Time passes quickly for elves, but a single morning seems centuries past. Lake Town is almost a day downriver. Less, she says, with the recent rain. She's fit and fast, but even she can't sprint beyond the pace of the river. The knot in her throat eases a fraction. If she can't keep up with them, the orcs certainly can't either. Legolas squints downstream, peering into the gloom. Do you have a plan? She doesn't know what she'd expected. Her heart had been so full of vengeance that she'd left with only her bow and her anchor. As if reading her mind, Legolas snorts and hands over something small, a loaf of lembas, wrapped in a silver leaf. You knew I'd follow, he says, arching an eyebrow, and I knew you'd forget. It's an embarrassing oversight, but she's grateful. She hadn't realized she's starving, and the mouthful of lembas is like the sweetest nectar. It will be easier to track in the morning, he goes on with a frown. This fog will have brought the orcs to a standstill. He'll be choking on it soon. She must make some small noise in her throat because he glances over and gives a nod. Lucky for us, we're not orcs. They run as only elves can, through the night and into the next day. Just past dusk, they round a bend and the lake suddenly swallows the horizon. Mist hangs at its surface, the tips of Lake Town's tallest buildings rising in the distance like a long-forgotten castle. She's come this way only a few times, and even then, never strayed farther than the edge of the forest. Heading down to the shore feels wild and forbidden, something both exciting and terrifying. When she thinks of Keeley, she feels the same way. He'll be choking on it soon. For a brief moment, she closes her eyes and breathes in the damp estuary air. She has no idea what soon means, if it's an hour, a day, a year. There's a small rational part of her that reminds her that the time may have already passed. But when she probes at it, the wave of panic is as fierce as it is unexpected. Starlight. He isn't hers to want. He isn't hers to even consider. But the memory of his warm eyes and the way his wet tunic embraced the broad curve of his shoulders leaves her inexplicably restless. Forcefully, she brings herself back to her surroundings. This is the foot of the bridge to Lake Town, a rickety wooden construction almost a mile in length. A dour collection of meager huts ring the shore, but where there should be traders and fisherfolk, only silence lingers. I have a bad feeling, Legolas says. He isn't wrong, and her stomach sinks as they survey the damage. The orc pack came through and overwhelmed the settlement so quickly there was no time to mount a defense. A few corpses fell with weapons in their hands, but most died unarmed. The orcs ransacked supplies. What they didn't take is strewn on the ground and trodden to ruin. They didn't take the boats. The dinghies are upset, holes bashed in with their own keels. The moon is high in the sky, filtered by scudding clouds and the faded red paint that could easily be mistaken for blood. After decimating the fishing village, the orcs made a point to dismember a beaver pulled from a dam in the nearby rushes. It's a gruesome sight. Why do they chase the dwarves so? Legolas asks. Perhaps they too want a share of Erebor's fabled treasure, although she's never heard of an orc with a passion for gold. I do not know. The orc tracks lead straight to the bridge, the long umbilical that allows Lake Town to exist so far from shore. Tariel's never had reason to cross the distance, and as they stand at its foot in the gathering dark, she steels herself against a sudden wave of apprehension. You fear the water? Legolas teases. Only what lies beyond, she retorts. All day, her pulse has been a steady drumbeat in her ears, a constant reminder that Keeley may already be dead. She has no claim on him, beyond what her king demands. He was a prisoner with a smile, He entertained her because he hoped to gain clemency. Whatever joy she found in his company is misplaced. What will she do when she finds him? What can she say? She tells herself sternly that seeing him alive will be enough. But oh, his name is Starlight. Alright, that was Starlight, Chapter 2 by Sacrifice Them to the Squid. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. It seems that we're getting ready to get into some real meat and potatoes of angst and tragedy and all of that sort of fun, good, hurty-feely stuff. So if you're still interested, you can find the link in the description to go and read Sacrifice Them to the Squid's fic over on AO3. And I think that's all I have left. I'm gonna go scrub the wood varnish off of my arms and my legs, and I will see you next time.